We play and call it work.
Hey folks, Janene from MiniWarGaming here with another how-to video for ya. In this video, we are going to continue working on this Varanguard mini, and we are going to paint the scale mail that's coming down the front of the horse. As always, if you have suggestions for something you'd like to see in a future how-to video, please leave them down below in the comments. We are going to start by base coating this in a dark, dingy silver. So we're going to take a little bit of lead Belcher. We're going to mix it with a little bit of Abaddon Black, about 50-50, with just a little bit of Lamian Medium as well. And I just want to paint this all over the scale mail. I want to make sure that I have a really nice thin paint so it doesn't go on too thick, but I want to make sure that it gets into all the nooks and crannies and underneath each of the scales and in between them all, because this is going to be my base coat and I really want to make sure that it's applied evenly over all of the scales. Using straight lead Belcher is just a little bit too bright and shiny for this step. I want something to be a little bit less lustrous. That's why I mix some black into my paint, because it makes it a little bit less shiny, a little bit more matte, and then I can highlight it with those really bright metallics later and give myself a little bit more control. I want to make sure that I flip this around and I get both areas of the scale mail skirt. And then I'm also going to go ahead and paint a few other silver areas. There's a chain that this Varanguard rider is using as reins. I want to paint that silver, and there's also just a few links here and there that I'm going to paint silver as well. Now I don't want this scale mail to be entirely one solid color. I'm going to break it up a little bit. So I'm going to take some brass scorpion, and I'm going to paint this on just a few links on each of these skirt sections. Not too many, I don't want it to go overboard, but I'm just going to pick out a few random, maybe 5 or 6 on each of the skirts, to kind of make it seem like this has been damaged and repaired and it's not just one solid color. It's going to make it a little bit more interesting and break things up a little bit more. Now I'm going to go back with pure lead Belcher. I've still mixed a little bit of Lamian Medium into the paint, but I'm not mixing this with black this time. And I'm going to use a small detail brush to highlight all of the edges of each of the scales. I really just want to paint the lower edge, and then the way that each of the scales is shaped, it's kind of got a ridge in the very middle and then one on each side. So I'm going to kind of paint each of those ridges a little bit so they're accentuated. But mostly I'm concentrating this highlight on the very bottom of each of the scales. This is more of a line highlight. I'm not concerned with making sure that it's perfectly blended because I really want the edges to stand out. I'm also going to highlight each of the links of the chain, picking out the areas where they're catching the light. I'm going to push the highlight even brighter by using the color Iron Breaker. And I'm just applying this over my lead Belcher color. I'm being a little bit more selective and pushing the highlight really towards the very center of the ridges and the very bottom of the scales. And I'm also going to use this Iron Breaker color to highlight all of the scales that I picked out in that brass scorpion color as well. Because even though I want them to seem different, and I want the colors to be slightly different, highlighting them with silver is still going to make sense, and it's going to kind of help them blend into the chainmail a little bit, while still having a slightly different tint than all of the rest of the scales. At this point, I want to add a couple of shades to the model. I'm going to mix 2. I'm going to use the color Carrowbird Crimson, and I'm also going to use the color Goelia Green shade. And I'm going to apply both of these at the same time. I want to make sure I do it when they're both wet so they kind of blend together a little bit. But I want the shadows to have a little tinge of color, and I want to use these 2 different shades so it seems that the light is kind of catching the metal and giving it more of a rainbow glint than a pure silver glint. After those shades have dried, I'm going to do one final highlight using Runefang Steel. And I just want to use my smallest detail brush and do a very thin line, mostly just on the bottom edge, just to give it a little bit more luster that I lost when I added the shade to the mini. and to just really catch out the bottom of these scales so they stand out from each other even though they're overlapping. And with that last highlight, the scale mill on this Varanguard Mini is complete. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more how-to videos, I have another one where I'm going to paint all of the trim on these black armor plates in the MiniWarGaming Vault in the link down below in the description. If you don't already have a Vault membership, you can go ahead and click the link, sign up for a 7-day free trial, and get access to my video, as well as hundreds of other videos in the MiniWarGaming Vault. So go ahead, click the link, start your free trial, and happy wargaming!